Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to Daybreak on Trust Television, reaching you from the nation's capital in Abuja. I am Ayuba Ilya. Thank you for joining us. Of course, I'm not alone. Good morning, Stella.
Good morning, Ayuba, and it's always a delight to be here. Good morning, Nigerians, and thank you for joining us. My name is Stella Iyaji.
Rocking your Ankara, I can see, this morning.
Proudly African.
Proudly African. This is one material that has, I would say, been in fashion for as long as I can remember, even from the old days till date.
And now it's going on international stage in different forms.
So it's quite a thing to be proud of as Africans. So, all right, now let's take a look at the headlines today. EFCC chairman speaks on court judgment sending him to prison.
2023, maintain neutrality, NYSC tells core members.
Scarcity. Fuel can't sell below 200 naira per litre, marketers say.
Now let's take a look at the details. The chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, Abdulrashid Bawa, has reacted to the judgment which sent him to prison. The court had ordered the EFCC to return to a defendant, a former director of operations at the Nigeria Air Force, Vice Air Marshal Rufus Adeni Ojuawo, his Range Rover and 40 million naira. The EFCC had arraigned Ojuawo on a 2-count charge before Justice Baba Idris of the High Court of the FCT Nyanya in 2016. He was accused of receiving 40 million naira and a Range Rover Sport from one Hima Abubakar. Consequently, the judge ordered that Bawa should be committed to prison at the Kuje Correctional Center for his willful disobedience to the order of the court. The chairman of the EFCC, Abdulrashid Bawa, has since appealed the judgment.
Now, the National Youth Service Corps has charged corps members who will serve as ad hoc staff in the forthcoming 2023 elections to remain neutral and maintain the scheme's integrity. The Edo State Coordinator of NYSC, Mrs. Abiodun Olubukola, said this during the swearing-in ceremony of the Batch C Stream 1 corps members. Earlier, Olubukola, who represented NYSC Director General Brigadier General Mohammed Fada, encouraged the corps members to leverage on the self-employment offered through the Skill Acquisition and Entrepreneurship Development Program. Fada, however, appealed to stakeholders to support the scheme's health initiative for rural dwellers aimed at providing easier access to free and qualitative care, especially for the rural poor.
Now, the National Operations Controller of the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, Mike Osatuyi, says the only realistic pump price of petrol is between 200 naira and 210 naira per litre. Osatuyi said the federal government's pricing template that fixed pump price at 169 naira per litre of petrol is grossly unrealistic, when landing cost of the fuel at the station is 194 naira per litre. He said this in an interview in Lagos on Tuesday. He stressed that the government's pricing template did not address current realities and pricing indices.
All right, now let's take a look at some of the packages we have this morning. Local barbers in Kano are often considered as traditional health practitioners specializing in women and children's illnesses. While some patronize them because they cannot afford medical bills at the conventional hospitals, others believe in the efficacy of herbal medicine. In this report, Trust TV's correspondent meets with one of the herbal medicine practitioners who believe that the practice can help reduce pressure on conventional health care institutions if properly supported by the government. Take a look.
For several months, Habiba Sani has been suffering from menstrual problem leading to a frequent abdominal pain. Despite her repeated visit to the hospital, her problems still persist. But with the help of this traditional physician, Habiba is now free.
Ina fama da ciwon mara, daukewa al'ada, na yi kusan shekara ɗaya al'ada ta bata zo ba, amma cikin ikon Allah tun da na zo yake bani magani yanzu komai na ya dawo daidai. Wallahi magungunan shi alhamdulillah ba abin da zamu cewa Allah sai godiya.
Operating opposite the exit gates of the Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital, Musa Kawu is an itinerant barber, otherwise known as Wanzami among the Hausa people. He specialized in offering traditional health assistance to mostly women and children. A practice Musa inherited from his mother. We do give medicines of various diseases as we inherit from our parents. These diseases include those of children and adults. Although believed to be effective by many, especially these women who queue in here on a daily basis, but conventional health practitioners argued that this unorthodox practice is a double-edged sword.
Traditional medical practice has been recognized by the World Health Organization as well as the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria to such an extent that the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria registers traditional medical healers. So one cannot completely rule out the possibility that there is some benefit to be derived from such a practice. But then on the other side, many of them try to do a practice where some mysterious activities are involved.
But not for people like Musa, who believe that with strict supervision and regulation by government authorities, traditional health practice can significantly reduce the burden and pressure on conventional healthcare institutions across the country. Idris Jibrin, Trust TV News, Kano.
Thank you, Idris Jibrin, for that report. Ayuba, I didn't know those barbers also carried out those kind of,
I mean,
duties.
You may say local barbers saving lives since 1875.
It may be even longer than that.
These are traditional practices. Aside the cutting of the hair, they are also specialists in herbal medicine and all that.
Specialists. How do they tell exactly what dose to give and for what?
Yeah, so I believe that these are things that they have learned
over time
as they grow up, and it's been transferred to them from generation
to generation.
So they kind of have their way around, herbal medicine and know what to do for what sickness. I mean, some of these illnesses have been there with us for generations. So people in those days, even before the advent of modern medicine, have always had ways of dealing with illnesses. And so these things are handed down, I believe, from generations, and we still have some of them with us today. I think that these are treasures that we should find a way of preserving.
I like the part that he said it helps to reduce the pressure on medical institutions.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
And accessible too.
Oh, yeah. I think it's a bit cheaper too.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Away from Kano State now. The scarcity and hike in cost of premium motor spirit has continued to cause Nigerians untold hardship. Trust TV's correspondent gives us an update from Makurdi. Let's take the report.
PMS distribution in Benue State is gradually sending motorists into serious uncertainty as the scarcity of the product has reached its peak.
Experience is not funny. As you can see, we are queuing up. I've been looking for fuel. I live far away from here, and I've been looking for fuel down until I got to this place, just to queue up for fuel again. So the experience is not funny. The issue is not even the rise in the price. We can't even find it. Even with the rise in the price, we can't get fuel to buy.
A few filling stations can be spotted with the product, and even then, the pump price is between 230 and 300 naira per litre.
Fuel we have in Nigeria, we cannot produce. We produce it and sell to other countries who buy and sell at lower price. But here in Nigeria, every day you wake up, they decide to go up. So it has not been easy for we who are poor people to cope. But the big man there did not know how we are suffering. Since morning, I've been looking for fuel in town. I managed to get it here in this filling station, but the price.
So frustrating, it's just really very frustrating. Throughout the year, we've been having different prices of fuel. Today you see it 180, tomorrow you see 200, tomorrow, and I mean, it's just so crazy as a country. We can't even explain, and there's never a reason why. For all these things about the fuel, we have seen it today, 235. What next tomorrow? It's just so frustrating.
The line is long and the fuel price has increased terribly.
The motorists are demanding explanations as to why the scarcity and hike in price. They said as it stands, many are wondering what is the true situation in the sector.
Us out of this mess because we don't even know what is happening. We learned that the subsidy has been removed or whether it's still there. We cannot even tell what is happening because nobody is talking about it. So we don't know what is happening. They should just come to our aid. The suffering is too much.
Like the federal government to at least reduce the scarcity and the price so that it's more like efficient for us to get and buy large quantities, something like that.
With the Christmas season inching closer, Makurdi residents are calling on the government to look into the problem before the holiday season.
Well, this is one story that will make one to ask the question, for how long shall this be? I mean, this is an experience that we thought was just going to be for weeks. And it started this year.
Since January this year,
the administration, we have not seen this until now, towards the end of it.
And it has been like this since January. Like he comes, he goes for a bit, and then he comes back.
Yes, so perhaps, as some have argued, that could it be a strategy to increase the price of...
And then the silence on the
petrol?
part of the government is very loud, if you ask me. Nobody is saying anything, no official statement on the issue that, okay, this is why this is really happening at this point.
So maybe that validates also the argument that maybe it's a strategy to get people to accept, you know, whatever price that comes.
In fact, we have a story in the Daily Trust that says that some petrol stations have already adjusted their pump prices.
Well, we'll get to see how this goes, or how far it goes. All right, moving on to other stories. Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, has condemned the People's Democratic Party for alleging that President Muhammadu Buhari's administration has no achievements to campaign with in the build-up to the 2023 polls. Mohammed, who made the clarifications at the second edition of the PMB administration scorecard in Abuja, said that the Buhari administration is spoiled for choice in celebrating its achievements. The report.
The Minister of Information noted that the Naira exchange rate and inflation were insufficient indices to write off Buhari's performance, noting that there are other areas such as infrastructure development in which the present administration had done creditably well.
Indeed, the Buhari administration is spoiled for choice in celebrating its achievements. As I said, we have completed the Abuja-Kaduna, the Lagos-Ibadan, and the Takpe-Warri standard gauge rail lines. We have commissioned brand new airport terminals in Abuja, Lagos, and Port Harcourt. We have completed housing projects in 35 states of the federation. We have constructed road projects in every state.
While giving the scorecard of his ministry, Minister of Transportation Muazu Sambo says train services on the Abuja-Kaduna rail line will resume this November. He said adequate security has been put in place to ensure the safety of passengers, but did not give any specific date for the resumption. Sambo said ministry had learnt enough lessons from the attack in March, which led to suspension of the train service on the Abuja-Kaduna route.
The Abuja-Kaduna mishap was indeed a very sad one, and by the grace of God, we shall not witness anything like that again. Not only because we have committed that to prayer, but we have also deliberately taken steps. Like you said, yes, indeed, lessons have been learned. And these lessons will be put into place.
Recall that the Minister of Transportation has said the Abuja-Kaduna rail line will not resume until all those kidnapped by the bandits in March are rescued and reunited with their families.
All right. 26 states have shunned the ongoing probe panel investigating the use of the ecological funds from 2010 to March 2022. The House had mandated its Committee on Ecological Fund to investigate the total consolidated accruals and utilization of the fund at plenary in June this year. Here is more on that.
The House of Representatives on the 23rd of June 2022, through a resolution, resolved to probe, among others, the total consolidated mandatory accruals into the Ecological Fund and to evaluate its disbursement in line with the provision of the 1999 Constitution. Other areas the committee is expected to also investigate is the utilization of the fund by benefiting MDAs. The Speaker was represented by the Deputy Majority Leader, Peter Akpatison, emphasized the importance of the probe while declaring it open.
The legislative agenda of the 9th House of Representatives includes a commitment to do everything in our power to address the environmental challenges in the country. Specifically, we have committed to take action to redress the identifiable environmental and ecological damage that has both resulted from the accelerated occurrence and consequences of ozone layer depletion, flooding issues, desertification, depletion of water resources, pollution of oceans and rivers, depletion of marine life and coral reefs.
However, 26 states and a handful of critical MDAs failed to appear before the probe panel. Only 10 appeared, out of which about 4 sent in apologies for not appearing. This infuriated members, who immediately moved a motion to summon the defaulting states with stern warning.
The MD of NEMA, having failed to respond to the 3 letters written to him, to respond to all the monies allocated to National Emergency Management Agency, is hereby summoned to appear before this committee on Wednesday, 9th of November by 10 a.m.
Further fueling the suspicion that some states deliberately shunned the probe panel, Secretary of Body of State Commissioners, in his reaction, alleged that some state governors refused granting permission to their commissioners to appear before the panel.
Commissioners and accountant generals are answerable to their principals. And I know no commissioner will definitely come without getting a clearance. So basically, that is actually what is happening. Most of the commissioners mentioned that up till now they have not gotten clearance from their principals to come.
Submissions were taken from states and agencies who were present for the hearing. Promising to study their submissions before the next hearing date, which was fixed for Wednesday, 9th of November, the committee adjourned sitting.
All right, thank you for staying with us. Now we'll take a short breather, and then when we return, we'll take a look at the dailies on Daybreak. Join us again.
But in a situation where you find that a person look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
All right, thank you for staying. Time for us to take a look at the dailies on Daybreak. Now, we begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The lead story, Governorship race, uncertainty over fate of PDP APC candidates in 4 states. You also have the riders that says PDP has no candidate in Zamfara. Court. Binani, Buacha, Adebutu fight to reclaim tickets. INEC must stand by rules of the game, dons say. And then you'd find also the pictorial there showing you the timeline, notifications of governorship party primaries by court in 2022. You have Alhaji Dauda Lawal Dare. You also have Senator Emmanuel Buacha, Ladia Debutu, Aisha Tahiru Binani of Adamawa, and Alhaji Dauda Lawal Dare. So these are some of the court cases you would find there, a graphic explanation. And then beside that, bandits abduct 20 children in Niger State, demand 40 million naira. This is coming a few days after about 39 children, 40 or thereabout, were abducted in Zamfara State and have since been released. ASU rejects half salaries, Mo's legal action on page 6. Hush Puppy backs 11 years, 3 months jail in US. That's on page 4. And then above the lead story, marketers push for 200 naira per litre as petrol sells above 180 in Abuja. Court convicts EFCC chairman for contempt. Bawa appeals ruling on page 6. PDP moves to reconcile Atiku, Bala Mohammed. So these are the stories on the front page of Daily Trust, not forgetting that we still have 11 schoolgirls of FGC Birni Awuri in captivity 510 days after. 1 student of Bethel Baptist High School, Kujama, 483 days after.
All right, let's now look at This Day newspaper. This Day newspaper has a lead story that says, this is coming from one of the presidential candidates, Kwankwaso. I'm not desperate to be president. And the first writer says, APC has proven to be worse than the PDP, insists all is not well in Northeast, where government claims it has defeated insurgency. And below the pictorial on the paper, we have court awards 200 million naira damages in favor of Benedict Peters against EFCC, Malami, 5 others. Just above the lead story, UK no longer against travel to FCT, insist risk remains. PDP, this is coming from the PDP, Atiku would never shy away from engaging Nigerians. And just above the masthead, Nnamani to Igbo, reflect on reality of Tinubu's presidency. We also have a story here. NLNG insists gas production not impacted by floods. And it has a rider, declares federal government's fight against crude oil theft has improved oil gas supply. These are the major stories on the This Day newspaper.
All right, on the Guardian newspaper this morning, the lead story says, diesel gas prices compound FX woes, inflation outlook. You'll also find court commits EFCC chairman to prison, directs IGP to execute order. ASU forecloses fresh strike, decries half pay. 90% of leaders shy from observing corporate governance, says IOD. You have new Naira notes, good policy, bad timing. You also have insecurity. Nigerians worried over threat to 2023 polls despite assurances. PDP denies resignation of PCC chair as aide tips Atiku to win despite rift. So these are the stories on the front page of The Guardian.
Over now to the Punch newspaper. It has a lead story that says 2023 polls subject presidential candidates others to psychiatric test. This is coming from the NMA. It has a first rider that says those with untreatable mental neurological problems should not lead. Medical body offers to set up panel of renowned specialists to do screening. And we also have the pictorial is that of core members. And then beneath that, we have a caption that says, NYC asks members to promote unity, nation building. Just beneath that, Chidinma foster father lied about Ataga's death. This is coming from the police. Hush Puppy jailed 11 years despite wife imam's pleas. Celestial Church members mob punchman, police probe attack. Just by the masthead, we have awarding Qatar World Cup a mistake. This is coming from Blatter. And above that, COP27, federal government eyes $400 billion for energy transition plan. ASU awaits court ruling on half pay. Still on the Punch, Nigeria 16 others to fight money laundering, terrorism. These are the major stories on the Punch newspaper for today.
All right, on the Leadership newspaper, you have the lead story talking about Bauchi governor accuses Atiku of unfair treatment. You'd also find above that half pay. ASU ends meeting, says no more strike. Another petrol pump price hike imminent, marketers say. You also have 17 die, 18 others injured in Kano accident on Isha blast. 2023 presidential race is a two-horse race, says Tinubu's camp. You would also find free education policy. El-Rufai orders refund of school fees to pupils. PMB hails FBN for 40 years of cross-border banking in UK. EFCC appeals court order committing chairman to prison. These are the stories on the front page of the Leadership.
And the Nation newspaper leads with a political story. Wike, others take anti-Atiku battle to Bauchi governor. The writer says G5 governors to meet Bala Mohammed today. Atiku hosts governor in Abuja. And just beneath that, marketers seek upward review of petrol pump price. We also have new Naira notes. Banks get 52 billion Naira cash deposits in 2 weeks. UK government okays 95 million pounds for 4 million Nigerians. Still on the Nation newspaper, 2023 elections. What are the big four offering? We also have the story here. $2 billion required to complete Ajaokuta, says minister. Also rejects payment of half salary to members. That is about it on the Nation newspaper for today.
All right, so let's get perspectives on these stories. We have Ben Sherman, the Director of News Voice of Nigeria, in the studio to give us perspectives on some of the stories. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
My pleasure once again. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, quite a number of stories. Let's begin with political stories. It looks like another name has been added to the list of governors who are not happy with the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar. We have seen the story about the Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed, who is feeling unfairly treated in the last outing of the PDP in Kaduna. So what do you make of this coming at this time?
It will take a mastery of the art of reconciliation for PDP to emerge out of this crisis. And if you check, now having Wike, Otum, and others storming Bauchi to still woo Governor Bala Mohammed, join this camp. And from the way Bala Mohammed is professing what is within him, Atiku is treating us unfairly. That again gives you a message that all is not well. Even when at the point some people are saying, oh, we're trying to reconcile Atiku and Bala Mohammed. Also, it's not too okay for the PDP. Even at that, APC too is not as if they are on a rosy kind of a bed, because there are still issues that are outstanding. I mean, there are leftover items that are supposed to be handled. And we're doing all of this when the time is running out. You look at the campaigns that are going on, instead of them to be issue-based, we're still talking of personalities. Come for debate, and of course, I won't come, I won't do this, I won't. Nigerians are gauging you by your utterances, so to speak. So if you underrate them, one day you won't, look at what is happening in U.S. Elections. So far, the Republicans, they are not in government, but you could see for now they are reaching somewhere. You look at Malawi, the sitting government was a kind of defeated by someone in opposition. Look at what happened in Kenya. So all is not well if you just believe, oh, my past records will bring me. Nigerians have a gauge. They can always weigh you to see.
But what is it with some of the loyalists of the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar that seem to be offsetting some of these governors? The Bauchi State governor is alleging that there are some of the loyalists of Atiku Abubakar in Bauchi who doesn't want his re-election as governor.
Yeah, you see, the whole thing has to do with all this zoning kind of a thing, when some people feel they've been skimmed out. Remember, Bala Mohammed has changed cabinet how many times? And when you feel you suspect so is no longer with you, sometimes you drop them. And if you check the IUCAM versus Atiku, then Wike versus others, it's still about this same zoning. If you say that the presidential candidate is in the north, so the chairmanship should go to the south, people argue, is it the time that you scatter all of that, bearing in mind that is a constitutional issue? Will Atiku just wake up and say, oh yeah, I so agree? If he agrees, it means you have to tinker with your constitution, you have to go to maybe some convention. Do you really have the time for all of this? Maybe after elections, if they win, or they don't win, they can still go back to the drawing board. Maybe that could be a way out. But so far, everybody is sticking to his guns, and I think there might be, like the greedy fly who follows the corpse to the graveyard, and of course they bury it together.
All right, as of today, we have the G5 governors who are not with Atiku. If the reconciliation moves between the PDP and Bala Mohammed does not go well, it will become G6. I read in one paper that the Wike group is shopping for more governors. Now my question is, all of those governors, if at the end there's no reconciliation, do you see them just sitting back and just working for their states, or they are going to throw their weight behind any other presidential candidates?
You see, when you see the body language of Otun, you say, if I were not to be in PDP, I'll be voting for Peter Obi. It says something. There's no smoke without fire, you know. But again, they all have to be careful. Their political careers are always at stake. If you say, okay, I will just simply work for the governor in my state, at the presidential level, it doesn't matter who wins. The next region, you contested to be president. Maybe if you're coming back, there could be payback time. Some people will pay you, if not the same side of the coin or size of the coin, there'll be more.
But do you think all of them would throw their weight in block behind anyone, or each person will now decide which presidential candidate I want to support?
The way they dine together, the way they move together, the way I see them dancing swange dance, twisting here and there. The twist tells you they might be going towards a direction. But where is that direction? Now, look at Konkoso also saying, look, this thing is not a do or die affair. I must not be president by all means. You know, there are messages. Some people are reading between the lines, but the ignorance are simply still reading on the line. Whereas the key players are already seeing some signals that some of us are not seeing. And that's why you see all these statements coming here and there.
Do you foresee a situation where these governors may come to some kind of deal with the opposition in their various states to say, hey, let's work towards getting your presidential candidates into office. For the governorship seat, you just leave that to me, you know, and then perhaps that will favor them.
Yes, I see it coming, but my worry is when you talk of party supremacy, Why is it that if you have these rebels in all these political parties, why is it that the party structure, the party administration, the head, why are they not sanctioning some people? Are they above?
What are their options, really?
I mean, if you have can't you suspend?
Wouldn't that break the camel's back? I mean, as it is right now, it's not like these governors have said,
but if it's going to bring sanity,
we are no longer.
If it's going to bring sanity, when indeed within the system, some people that are supposed to work for you are instead of marketing you, they are demarketing you.
And in the case of PDP, which leadership is going to sanction them when they're actually asking for the chairman to go?
Well, they are asking for chairman. They are not asking for somebody that does not exist.
And then perhaps maybe there's a fear of litigation. I mean, who knows?
Well,
maybe that could land the party into.
But honestly, it's a thing that they all have to sit down if indeed they must win. You cannot be going to a battlefield and the commanders are giving commands, the troops are refusing to obey, sub-commanders are taking that route, you're going that way, see obstacles ahead, you are not bothered. At the point you stop and fight yourselves, the enemies are watching and of course studying. Your mistakes are a very big university for others to study and see your loopholes. This is how we're going to overcome them to our own advantage.
All right, let's take a look at this other story on the front page of the Daily Trust. Hush Puppy bags 11 years, 3-month jail in U.S. This is someone who became a poster boy for a lot of youths in Nigeria, especially on social media, because he was living very extravagantly. And you could see, if you followed his page and the kind of comments a lot of youths wanted to be like him. Do you think that this will serve as a deterrent to people who want to engage in fraud, especially among the youths?
Yeah. When you listen to the preacher, they tell you, not all that glitters is gold. It's not, look, when suddenly you've never known somebody, you've never from Adam, suddenly, I mean, the waves are all around him, all about him. And when he moves with a crowd, a kind of, in the social media, see how many people are following him. And that's why ab initio, we expected that the security agencies should be able to comb some of these things. But I'm worried at the point, especially our youth who indeed, I've seen that one secondary school here in Abuja has developed a kind of an app to purify water and some other things. Now, when you see these children with laptops, you begin to call them Yahoo boys. I think we're going to cripple their initiative. But what I'm still saying is that whenever you just wake up and see somebody with flamboyant kind of life, I mean, this kind of I don't care attitude, you flaunt cars so costly, you live in some opulence that are questionable. I think that this is where EFCC should go in quickly. And it's belittling. You see that security agencies, like we had the IG Special Squad that was supposed to have monitored this guy, you now go hypnoting with him, snapping, posing, and also sharing in your own Facebook account and all that stuff. When you notice a criminal, except otherwise you're doing all of that in order to know him and, of course, catch him, get their network, and of course, do something. Outside that, if you just believe you are associating with someone who has made it in life, I think it's just wrong. Let there be a means that someone is living on. Let us see how he's working to make that money. Not that you just wake up. You can't account for this.
What does that even say about the pattern of consumption of social media content? These days, and how that is also shaping the thought, the thinking of the average youth in Nigeria, and whether or not there's something that can be done, maybe by government, to see how can we, put a check on the kind of luxurious or affluence that we see on social media that may not be necessarily representing the reality.
You see, sometimes there has to be conscience. When you exhibit publicly this kind of wealth, when you know it is questionable, it shouldn't just be. Why don't even you go into some investment? Create an industry.
Conscience on whose part? The person?
I mean, when they
the person is already a criminal.
But how did he start? At the point, see, Stella, when you are writing something and you know that this spelling of accommodation, is it Sean T-I-O-N or S-I-O-N? See, something will tell you you are wrong somewhere. You underline it and check later. At that point, when you are about conceiving a crime. Actors, these lawyers, when you perceive and you plan and you move and execute, by the time you are planning, you know you are conceiving this idea, you know it's a criminal act.
Right.
And of course, why do people obey the laws? Because they fear they will be punished, because there are some people they respect, they don't want to disgrace them because of their parents, because of their children. They wouldn't want to go into all of them.
All right, so talking about obedience to the law, the EFCC chair is being charged with contempt of court. The court is asking to convict him at the Kuje prison for contempt. An order was issued some time back, expecting that they will see to the enforcement of the law, but that didn't happen, and so the judge is issuing that order. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I think that just like we just left this issue, it all started with an Air Force officer who was suspected of receiving a gift of a car, something like that. And of course, on suspicion, the car or something was taken from him. The guy went to court, said, "Give me my car," and the court so ruled, "Give him." So after years, nothing has been given to the man. He returned to the court crying, "You ruled," and there was no ground of appeal. So if time of appeal has passed, it's taken that it's like less. How do they call it? You are no longer interested in prosecuting it, you know. Therefore, the judge felt angered. Laws are supposed to be obeyed. And if you check, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, just this week or just at the tail end of last week, just said, "Fear no man, deliver justice. Let the judiciary still be the hope of the common man." So if this vehicle is being retained for this long against the law, of course, he has to be committed to some prison terms. And that's what they've done. And I'm told that he's gone on an appeal. And so why did you wait till this level? And if, again, the law will look at, I'm not saying the judge, the law will say, it's not a respecter of persons.
So we understand that the judge has also asked the IGP to ensure that the EFCC chair has been arrested and also to be sent to Kuje prison. But we also now understand that the IG, according to reports, is not even aware of this. You know, perhaps he has not been informed officially or formally about this. And so between those who are meant to implement the laws and those who interpret the laws, do you think that there's a disconnect from what we've been saying over the years?
Yeah, you see, when a judgment has been passed, you hear some people, court saying, well, when we get the facts as ruled, the minutes, the judgment itself, if taken to us, we study and implement. But if, therefore, something has been done, the judge has said this, and of course, the word of mouth runs faster. And the IG will hear this, will say, well, I've not seen it officially. I've not received it, no communication, so to speak. But that does not annul it. And if they really want to do it, if IG, you feel, okay, the chairman is circulated by policemen, IG has the power to withdraw his policemen. And they make you, even though EFCC itself, they've trained their own arm in terms of arms control and handling because of issues of this nature. But it shouldn't reach a situation where we have fine officers engaged in a street duet to show who is indeed has a greater power. No.
All right. There's this story on the City and Crime page of the Daily Trust that I'd like you to speak to. It says, man poisons daughter over love affair. Okay, so the story says the man had warned the daughter earlier to stay away from a particular guy because the girl was supposed to be preparing to go to higher institution, right? But because she did not heed to his warning, he put sniper in her tea. Was that not a bit drastic?
Look, it is the very low level of being a friend of Satan. I mean, it is the greatest level of, if you say man's inhumanity to fellow man, look, that's putting it mild. I think that he deserves an arrest, trial, real prosecution, and of course he should be cooling in the correctional centers here and there. It's unheard of. Your daughter, not just your daughter, I mean, it could be anybody's child, any person, any human being. Why do you poison? So what's the benefit now? The next thing is you say, oh, I was pushed by Satan. I saw a cartoon where Satan was advising God to start advising his children. When they commit, they'll start blaming me. You did that crime, I was not there. Satan was complaining. So at a point, truly, the way things are being done, children are stolen. They said some sacrifices to make money. Okay, I'll kill this daughter to ensure this guy loses her. So what have you gained? And if you go by the holy books, you'll be punished here in Nigeria, and when you die, of course, the story is hell. Too many bad things for him.
Quite a sad one, really. But again, we cannot end this session without talking about the issue of the fuel scarcity and the likelihood of an increase of the price, the official price, to over 200 naira per liter. We are seeing that the marketers are pushing for that. What do you make of this?
Well, they've blamed rather everything. The next thing now they'll say there's a redesign of the currency. That's why we have this scarcity. That's putting it mildly. But I think that Nigerians have suffered so much, and I've seen that some politicians, some presidential candidates are saying, I mean, with boldness, vote me in, we'll remove subsidy, use this money to develop this country. Maybe it's going to look like if we were to have, you know, those days when you have Petroleum Trust Fund during the Abacha days, you pick your budget, let's say 5 million naira. Suddenly you realize extra 1 million. That extra 1 million was the creation of PTF, and they gave General Buhari to administer. Today, if you go to some campuses, you still see PTF projects there and here and there. If it's going to ensure that some projects are to come on board, I have no problem with that. Just like we're talking about.
But Mr. Chairman, the problem is that right now there's subsidy. So why is the price just, you know, not too long ago it was adjusted, and now they're in the process of another adjustment. There's a subsidy in place at the moment.
Yes, and so where is that money going to? That's the question.
Honestly, that's always the question. Fetching water in a basket, or fetching water and throwing it inside the well? I mean, it's like that's exactly what we are doing. But I think there has to be a lasting solution to this. The other time I was reading, they said the refineries will soon come on board, and when Dangote comes on board, it's also going to augment what the federal government is doing. Well, we hope so. And we were told that because of oil theft, crude and refined, I mean, everything went down. But I've seen in one of the papers where they're saying that the drastic action taken in the last 1 month has a kind of brought some sanity in the pipelines, in security, in stealing and all that. And you could see some neighboring countries where the coastline, they've arrested some ship with Nigerian crude, and they want to bring them back to Nigeria. That is just how it's supposed to be, so that seafarers too we ensure
All
that we have a better business.
All right, let's quickly also talk about this. On the Nation newspaper, there's a story there. New Naira notes, banks get 52 billion cash deposit in 2 weeks. That means there's a lot of money out there, right?
That also means, I don't want some people to crucify me, but I love the redesigning of this Naira note. Where some people brought in some notes, I mean, heaps of money, and you could see the wraps right from 2002 and 3. I mean, they've never used those money, 200 Naira notes. Do you realize 200 Naira notes are so scarce in Nigeria? They are. Same thing with 100 Naira. They are scarce. Now, that has been wrapped, now taken to the bank, you know. And those kidnapping, like they said, security too, those kidnapping in terms of ransom, those who have received and taken money, they are in the bushes. Of course, now let's see who brings what amount. Or you return them there, then maybe that your community you use the old currency. But I think that it's good time that in terms of excess liquidity mopping, as the finance people will say, when there's too much money in circulation, of course you realize that there will be a kind of inflation. So we expect that as money is being returned, of course, the CBN will take charge because they declared how many trillions wanted. They printed this. Now, the commercial banks can only account for this figure. What about the rest?
But I'm thinking that people in some rural areas that have been displaced by bandits, and they don't have banks. People in those areas who go to market on a daily basis, come back home, keep this money in their houses. How are they going to do under this new regime?
Yes, you are asking that question on behalf of the masses. But still, I asked you, how much do those people have at home? 2,000? 10,000? When the time for, now they've started weekend banking. How do we exchange this money? Okay, this so village, this mosque, we're going to give imam. I beg, take it to so this church, so we're going to give it to pastor. Look, church leader, take it to, I mean, you gather your money, write your names. This one gave 10,000, this one 5,000, this one 2,000. My mother, you go and give her 1,000, she'll tie it and keep. She's not spending. You go again, give her 3,000, she's tie and keep it. She say, I'm told that they are changing money. It's for you again to do the needful for Mama so that she's not left out.
Okay, so the editorial, briefly before we go, the editorial of the Daily Trust today talks about positioning Africa's youth for the future. How positioned are the youth in Africa right now? And where should we be looking in terms of making sure that the youth on the continent are positioned?
Honestly, in Nigeria, when you look at the education policy, 6-3-3-4 system, first 6, primary school, second 3, they're supposed to teach you some tiling, carpentry, wiring, painting and all that, so that if you don't even go to secondary school, you started surviving. You go to the next level, if you dropped out of school, you have a means of livelihood. And government in Africa, I mean, does it not say too much about you? That year in, year out, I was watching on BBC World, where a ship just bathed in Italy. They said, we are not ready to receive you. And the guys, they are saying, these blacks are human beings, like you. You in Europe, underdeveloped Africa, now they are here to share. You are saying, no, the ship is going to remain here. Does it not say a word or two to African leaders? When we recruit these youths to do mayhem in society, to go attack political opponents, what are we doing to the youth? We need to have deliberate policies for the youth. We need schools, we need to change the entire curriculum to ensure that the youths are never left behind. Because when you look at the population, the size of youth, they constitute the majority. So what do you do with them in the next 20 years? Very, very critical. And when we talk about out-of-school syndrome, in Nigeria, the population is swallowing that of Benin, Togo, and maybe Niger. You put together. So how do we handle that? That's just Nigeria alone. And there is always this saying, if Nigeria gets it right, Africa gets it right. So we expect sporting events, engage these youths. Let there be holy, nice competitions instead of fighting in the streets. Sponsor them with arms, give them hard drugs to take, change their orientation and they become agents of destruction. It shouldn't just be. So good editorial, we expect that government, too, when they read some of these things, even in federal cabinet, did you see the editorial of so concerning the youth? Minister of Youth, what is it that we have to do here concerning these youth? We take it seriously. And sorry, finally, NYSC, when we saw, they said they've mobilized Udom Emmanuel delivered a lecture in Arewa House in Kaduna this year. He said he would love a situation where when coppers leave various states to go to where they've never been to, in the end, as soon as they finish service, every local government, why don't you take two around every local government in the country? And that will ensure integration. At the moment you finish service, you're on your own. Instead of NYSC, they define it as now your suffering continues. It shouldn't be.
All right, thank you so much. It's a good place for us to end the newspaper review for this morning. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak. Our guest reviewer is Ben Chemang, the Director of News, Voice of Nigeria. We'll take a short breather, and then when we return, we'll take a look at the headlines again. Join us.
TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
All right, thank you for staying with us. It's Daybreak on Trust Television. Now time for us to take a look at the headlines as it is the top of the hour. Now, 2023 election, Zamfara PDP has no candidate, court rules.
EFCC chairman speaks on court judgment, sending him to prison.
Scarcity, fuel can sell below 200 naira per litre, says marketers.
Now let's take a look at the details. The Federal High Court in Gusau, Zamfara State has again nullified the Fresh People's Democratic Party's primary in Zamfara State. The court had earlier annulled the primaries that produced Dauda Lawal Dere as gubernatorial candidate of the PDP in Zamfara. Lawal had polled 431 votes to win the governorship ticket in the party's primary, held on May 25, 2022. Three other aspirants, Abubakar Nakwada Wadata Madawaki and Ibrahim Shehu Gusau, had earlier withdrawn from the race, alleging irregularities. But Adamu Maina, the returning officer for the primary, said their withdrawal was declined since it was without formal notice. However, in June, Shehu Gusau, Madawaki, and Aliyu Hafiz Mohammed, another aspirant, filed a suit challenging the legality of the primary that produced Lawal as the party's candidate. They requested that the exercise be annulled due to alleged anomalies, contradictions, fraud, violation of the Electoral Act and the party's constitution, amongst other things. Delivering judgment in September, Justice Aminu Bappa granted all the prayers of the plaintiffs and annulled the primary. He also ordered that a fresh primary should be conducted to produce a flag bearer. But Dere emerged winner of the fresh primary.
Chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, Abdurrashid Bawa, has reacted to the judgment which sent him to prison. The court had ordered the EFCC to return to a defendant, a former director of operations at the Nigerian Air Force, Air Vice Marshal Rufus Adeni Ajawu, his Range Rover and 40 million naira. The EFCC had rearranged Ajawu on a two-count charge before Justice Mawiya Baba Idris of the High Court of the FCT in Nyanya in 2006, receiving 40 million naira and a Range Rover Sport from one Hima Abubakar of Society the Equipment International Nigeria Limited. Consequently, the judge ordered that Bawa should be committed to prison at the Kuje Correctional Center for his willful disobedience to the order of the court. The chairman of the EFCC, Abdurrashid Bawa, has since appealed the judgment.
The National Operations Controller of the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN, Mike Oshatuye, says the only realistic pump price of petrol is between 200 and 210 naira per litre. He said the federal government's pricing template, the fixed pump price at 169 naira per litre of petrol, is grossly unrealistic when landing cost of the petrol at the station is 194 naira per litre. He said this in an interview in Lagos on Tuesday. He stressed that the government's pricing template did not address current realities and pricing indices.
All right, now let's take a look at some of the packages we have. Residents of Kaduna Metropolis have welcomed the federal government's, sorry, I beg your pardon. Well, we have a package on that. Just take a look.
The House of Representatives on the 23rd of June 2022, through a resolution, resolved to probe, among others, the total consolidated mandatory accruals into the Ecological Fund and to evaluate its disbursement in line with the provision of the 1999 Constitution. Other areas the committee is expected to also investigate is the utilization of the fund by benefiting MDAs. The Speaker was represented by the Deputy Majority Leader, Peter Akpatison, emphasized the importance of the probe while declaring it open.
The legislative agenda of the 9th House of Representatives includes a commitment to do everything in our power to address the environmental challenges in the country. Specifically, we have committed to take action to redress the identifiable environmental and ecological damage that has both resulted from the accelerated occurrence and consequences of ozone layer depletion, flooding issues, desertification, depletion of water resources, pollution of oceans and rivers, depletion of marine life and coral reefs.
However, 26 states and a handful of critical MDAs failed to appear before the probe panel. Only 10 appeared, out of which about 4 sent an apologies for not appearing. This infuriated members, who immediately moved a motion to summon the defaulting states with stern warning.
The MD of NEMA, having failed to respond to the 3 letters written to him, to respond to all the monies allocated to National Emergency Management Agency, is hereby summoned to appear before this committee on Wednesday, 9th of November by 10 a.m.
Further fueling the suspicion that some states deliberately shunned the probe panel, Secretary of Body of State Commissioners, in his reaction, alleged that some state governors refused granting permission to their commissioners to appear before the panel.
Commissioners and accountant generals are answerable to their principals. And I know no commissioner will definitely come without getting a clearance. So basically, that is actually what is happening. Most of the commissioners mentioned that up till now they have not gotten clearance from their principals to come.
Submissions were taken from states and agencies who were present for the hearing. Promising to study their submissions before the next hearing date, which was fixed for Wednesday, 9th of November, the committee adjourned sitting.
All right. The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, has condemned the People's Democratic Party for alleging that President Muhammadu Buhari's administration has no achievements to campaign with in the build-up to the 2023 elections. Mohammed, who made the clarifications at the second edition of the PMB administration scorecard in Abuja, said the Buhari administration is poised for choice in celebrating its achievements. Let's take the report.
The Minister of Information noted that the Naira exchange rate and inflation were insufficient indices to write off Buhari's performance, noting that there are other areas such as infrastructure development in which the present administration had done creditably well.
Indeed, the Buhari administration is poised for choice in celebrating its achievements. As I said, we have completed the Abuja-Kaduna, the Lagos-Ibadan, and the Itakpe-Warri standard gauge rail lines. We have commissioned brand new airport terminals in Abuja, Lagos, and Port Harcourt. We have completed housing projects in 35 states of federation. We have constructed road projects in every state.
While giving the scorecard of his ministry, Minister of Transportation Muazu Sambo says train services on the Abuja-Kaduna rail line will resume this November. He said adequate security has been put in place to ensure the safety of passengers, but did not give any specific date for the resumption. Sambo said ministry had learnt enough lessons from the attack in March, which led to suspension of the train service on the Abuja-Kaduna route.
The Abuja-Kaduna mishap was indeed a very sad one, and by the grace of God, we shall not witness anything like that again. Not only because we have committed that to prayer, but we have also deliberately taken steps. Like you said, yes, indeed, lessons have been learned. And these lessons will be put into place.
Recall that the Minister of Transportation has said the Abuja-Kaduna rail line will not resume until all those kidnapped by the bandits in March are rescued and reunited with their families.
All right, now local barbers in Kano are often considered as traditional health practitioners specializing in women and children's illnesses, while some patronize them because they cannot afford medical bills at the conventional hospitals. Others believe in the efficacy of herbal medicine. In this report, Trust TV's correspondent meets with one herbal medicine practitioner who believe that the practice can help reduce pressure on conventional health institutions if properly supported by the government.
For several months, Habiba Sani has been suffering from menstrual problem leading to a frequent abdominal pain. Despite her repeated visit to the hospital, her problems still persist. But with the help of this traditional physician, Habiba is now free.
Da ina fama da ciwon mara, ɗaukewa al'ada, na yi kusan shekara ɗaya al'ada ta bata zo ba, amma cikin ikon Allah tun da na zo yake bani magani yanzu komai na ya dawo daidai. Wallahi magungunan shi alhamdulillah ba abin da za mu ce wa Allah sai godiya.
Operating opposite the exit gates of the Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital, Musa Kawu is an itinerant barber, otherwise known as Wanzami among the Hausa people. He specialized in offering traditional health assistance to mostly women and children.
An taɓa miki aikinsa a asibiti ko ba taɓa ba.
A practice Musa inherited from his mother.
Muna ba da maganin cutuka.
We do give medicines of various diseases as we inherit from our parents. These diseases include those of children and adults.
Although believed to be effective by many, especially these women who queue in here on a daily basis, but conventional health practitioners argued that this unorthodox practice is a double-edged sword.
Traditional medical practice has been recognized by the World Health Organization as well as the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria to such an extent that the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria registers traditional medical healers. So one cannot completely rule out the possibility that there is some benefit to be derived from such a practice. But then on the other side, many of them try to do a practice where some mysterious activities are involved.
But not for people like Musa, who believe that with strict supervision and regulation by government authorities, traditional health practice can significantly reduce the burden and pressure on conventional healthcare institutions across the country. Idris Jibrin, Trust TV News, Kano.
Thank you, Idris Jibrin. The scarcity and hike in the cost of petrol has continued to cause Nigerians untold hardship. Trust TV's correspondent gives us an update from Makurdi.
PMS distribution in Benue State is gradually sending motorists into serious uncertainty as the scarcity of the product has reached its peak.
Experience is not funny. As you can see, we are queuing up. I've been looking for fuel. I live far away from here, and I've been looking for fuel down until I got to this place, just to queue up for fuel again. So the experience is not funny. The issue is not even the rise in the price. We can't even find it. Even with the rise in the price, we can't get fuel to buy.
A few filling stations can be spotted with the product, and even then, the pump price is between 230 and 300 naira per litre.
Fuel we have in Nigeria, we cannot produce. We produce it and sell to other countries who buy and sell at lower price. But here in Nigeria, every day you wake up, they decide to go up. So it has not been easy for we who are poor people to cope. But the big man there did not know how we are suffering. Since morning, I've been looking for fuel in town. I managed to get it here in this filling station, but the price.
So frustrating, it's just really very frustrating. Throughout the year, we've been having different prices of fuel. Today you see it 180, tomorrow you see 200, tomorrow, and I mean, it's just so crazy as a country. We can't even explain, and there's never a reason why. For all these things about the fuel, we have seen it today, 235. What next tomorrow? It's just so frustrating.
The line is long and the fuel price has increased terribly.
The motorists are demanding explanations as to why the scarcity and hike in price. They said as it stands, many are wondering what is the true situation in the sector.
Help us out of this mess because we don't even know what is happening. We learned that the subsidy has been removed or whether it's still there. We cannot even tell what is happening because nobody is talking about it. So we don't know what is happening. They should just come to our aid. The suffering is too much.
Like the federal government to at least reduce the scarcity and the price so that it will be more like efficient for us to get and buy large quantities, something like that.
With the Christmas season inching closer, Makurdi residents are calling on the government to look into the problem before the holiday season.
All right, let's move on to the next discussion. But before that, we'll take a short breather, and then thereafter, we'll take a look at the discussion. All right, thank you for staying. Now, the Chief Justice of the Federation, Justice Olukayode Ariola, on Monday sworn in members of the Election Petition Tribunal for the 2023 general elections in Abuja and warned them against any form of judicial recklessness. However, a senior advocate of Nigeria, Ebun Olu Adegborua, has called on politicians to learn to accept defeat during electoral contest rather than always trying to maneuver their ways to leadership through the judiciary. He warned that if courts continue to choose leaders for the people, elections will soon become irrelevant as more politicians will explore the judiciary to impose themselves on the people. Many past and present governors in Nigeria came into power through court judgment overturning the declaration of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Chairman of the Partners for Electoral Reform and board member of YAGA, Nwagu Ezenwa, joins us in the studio for more perspectives on this. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak.
Thank you. Good morning.
You're welcome. All right, well, court cases during electioneering period is very common. I mean, the lead story of the Daily Trust this morning says it all. There's a lot of uncertainty over fate of PDP and APC candidates in 4 states. I think it was yesterday we saw a judgment in Zamfara State where the primaries in the state was nullified by a high court. So, and the INEC chairman recently lamented, I think 2 days ago, he says that it appears that there's increase in the number of cases. He talks about 600 cases arising from primary elections that were held some months back. So what do you think is responsible for this increase in number of litigations?
Well, so it's fair to first situate the fact that I think we overrate our politicians, and we have over-respected them to the point where we don't get interested in the internal governance processes within these political parties. And the consequence is what we have. Now, what do I mean by that? These 600 cases are not election cases. They are party primaries. So what does that mean? Lack of internal party democracy. People who will eventually, our governance, our leadership recruitment procedure comes from the political parties. They themselves cannot organize free, fair, credible, acceptable elections. And so the expectation that, that the main election itself, which we have incrementally, because of our overbearing oversight on INEC, we have at least shifted the needle a little bit in terms of election integrity, credibility, and acceptability. So you are not seeing a lot of litigation on process. Where the bigger crisis is right now is at the political party level. So it just simply calls for attention in that direction. So what do we need to do? What this mode of, primaries, what is the constitution of these political parties? What are their own regulations? Do they abide by those regulations?
Do you think,
if they don't abide, who is calling them out?
Do you think that the new Electoral Act has anything to do with this? Perhaps, I mean, a lot of changes have been made, and maybe the political parties and the politicians haven't really acclimatized themselves with some of the provisions and the consequences of some of their actions.
Well, first and foremost, it is their own laws that they violate. The Electoral Act is a broader.
Yes, I'm talking about is their own laws that they violate. And let's look at the most recent of them, Zamfara.
Yes.
In the first instance, Guso, one of the aspirants, went to court challenging the processes that led to the emergence of Dere as their candidate.
Yes.
The court annulled it and called for a rerun.
Yes.
They had a rerun. The same Guso went back to court, challenging the same the process again. Now, in giving the ruling yesterday, the judge said that, first of all, there was supposed to be 21-day notice to INEC before the election held. There was also supposed to be 7-day notice to all the aspirants before the election, and that none of that was complied with. My question is, these people know these things. They know that these are the processes. Why do they deliberately violate them?
So impunity. It's simply impunity. Look, you make laws. This, first and foremost, many people, because of the fluidity of membership, okay, you are this in the morning and in the evening you have become this or that. Many people who even contest under these platforms have no engagement with the documents, with the guiding documents with which you can engage in that political party. So that's why I said, how much investment have we made in strengthening our political party administration and structure? The way we have engaged perhaps INEC. So you find a situation in which there are waivers. You can join in the morning and they just grant you waiver. So the question is, the judiciary is on their own. They are just sitting there waiting for you. If you say, oh, I have been wronged, they say, okay, how have you been wronged? You say, look at our document, look at our rules. If you provide sufficient evidence to show that there is no internal, democracy within your party and that you have been in any way shortchanged, the judiciary will then intervene. So the place to place a lot of attention is in the political parties themselves. So when you say they know, they are the first and foremost, the governors have become imperial lords in the sense that we allow them to transit from a point in which they get very angry with anything contest. They don't like contest. Okay? We like the word, we gave him the ticket. I don't know if you hear those kind of things. We gave him. In democracy, you don't give the ticket. People contest for the ticket, and in a fair process. So when the process is not fair, you don't tell anybody that he should go and fight, he should break up things. The only place to go is to the judiciary. And whether the judiciary makes fair judgment or not, according to their own understanding of your own laws. Because at the end of the day, we are not dealing with electoral. The tribunal that was set up is different now. We are dealing with pre-election issues. All pre-election issues are political party affairs. And it boils down to what I'm saying, that they do not have respect for their own laws. They have no respect for their own guidelines. And many of them even do not know what their party represents.
So who is responsible for making sure that they respect their own laws?
We do all. We all do have that responsibility. Did anybody invite us to be talking about INEC? We chose that, look, our election must be such that it needs to be competitive, it needs to be fair, it needs to be credible. And we started investing. Donors, everybody started putting money. You are running programs here that educates the people about these processes. All of that has impacted in the quality of elections. But what do? because of so many other entanglements around the politician and his political party, we over-respect them. And I've shouted myself hoarse that except we pay attention, you can't have a situation in which one human being has been a member of a political party. In just 2 months, he has crisscrossed 4 political parties. And there's no sanction.
Okay, how do you see this affecting the 2023 election? The INEC chair has said it's affecting preparations ahead of the
This
polls and all
INEC
that,
will print ballot papers. A lot of money is invested in logistics. And then at the end of the day, maybe just 1 month to the election, you just come and say, because these things are printed ahead of time. And then the court just says, it is not easy, it's you that is now the candidate. It means that INEC will have to go back. And within that kind of situation, procurement becomes very expensive. So that cost is important. Then the issue of perception as well. How will the citizens perceive these changes? Today, this person is the candidate of the political party, and then maybe on the strength of that person's personality, they mobilize around that person, and then suddenly the court says, you know, you are not the one, simply because of the mistakes of the political party. So its impact, apart from cost, there are also, psychological impact that it has. But what is important for me, and which is what I have articulated, is that there is a need for us, post-2023, to begin to pay a lot more attention on how we build our political parties in a way that it begins to understand that it has to respect its own rules and guidelines and laws.
All right, while we're talking about, I want you to make a tie between the judiciary and the political parties, because the thing is this, sometimes you hear politicians make statements like, do anything you can to win this election, we'll meet in court, let's go to court. Is it possible that some of them do these things because they know that somehow they can get their way in court? So
there are two-pronged advocacy that I think that we need to engage. First and foremost is that there is still a lot of over-respect from a lord, in the sense in which we also think that they don't play in the political environment. But my sense always is that, hey, I'm here, I'm just here. I'm here. If you don't bring matter to me, I will not come. The person who has the responsibility to do the right thing is the organizers, the political party organizers, who do the wrong thing and then enable people to corrupt this other process. If those
other people take a stand, and
they cannot take
the political parties are sure that if I go there, as long as what I've done is wrong, I'm going to lose.
Let me tell you something. In post-2007, you could be voting and the result of where you're voting will be announced. When President Musa Yar'Adua won his election, he told us that the process that brought him to power was fraudulent, and he set up the Justice Uwais Electoral Commission. Now, that was the time in which the judiciary, you understand, played this role, this very terrible role that we are talking about, where people just say, okay, anything, stop the ballot box, do whatever you have to do. With the incremental progress in electoral reform processes, you see that people no longer can snatch ballot box. They no longer can stuff it because it's no longer profitable. You no longer can carry as many PVCs as you like because we are now doing bimodal, verification and all the rest of them. When you strengthen your process, the opportunity for conflict is minimized. You get what I'm saying? So if there are times, even when a judge is corrupt, he will look at this one and say, Kai, because there must be something, even if you must provide a technical escape, because there's a review process. The review process also has something to do. If you give a judgment that there is no plank on which that your judgment is given, it reduces your integrity You understand what I'm saying? So for me, it's strengthen the process. I've always argued, as you strengthen your processes, the opportunity for conflict and litigation is minimized. But if your processes are porous, without integrity, there is nothing anybody can do about that. You just have to go to court. And court going to court is also part of the electoral process anyway. Is the end point of the electoral process. So as we are doing advocacy to strengthen INEC, my sense always is that the stakeholdership in the election pyramid is such that for you to have credible elections, you need not just INEC, you need the political parties, you need security agents, and you need the judiciary. But often, if you follow public commentary in Nigeria, 90% of our attention is on INEC. We hardly pay attention to these other stakeholders whose contribution make or mar our electoral process. We believe that because somebody is a lawyer, because somebody is a judge, that the person has studied the Electoral Act. So there is the place of ignorance, there is the place of mischief. Okay? But advocacy can cure both. Advocacy can put people in a position where now the citizens know that if you do this thing, they can call you out. We can't call out judges, even when judges do. On this program now, we will respect the person, even when we know that that judgment is a black market judgment. We will not say anything. We will come here and keep quiet and say it's so that we don't get into contempt of the court. And then that becomes a veneer to protect corrupt individuals who sabotage and subvert the electoral will of the people. So we must broaden our advocacy. And
so
that's
aside advocacy, is there anything else that can be done to stop this? Maybe some kind of gatekeeping that would say, okay, some of these improbable cases, like the INEC chair puts it, do not have to go to the courts to waste the time of the court and waste the time of everybody.
There is the election. We talked about setting up electoral offences commission. We've talked about, unbundling INEC in such a way that it can face this. People have talked about special courts for election-related cases. But my brother, how many special? We have special court for rape, special court for armed robbery, So at the end of the day, all we need to do is this thing called NJC, the National Judicial Council, has to also come to the conversation about electoral reforms. It must come there in a way that it can then tell its judges and say, look, we will sanction you.
Exactly, that's what I was going to ask. Apart from the fact that, okay, when after all of this you go to court and then maybe you lose because maybe what you did was wrong, is there a way that person can be sanctioned to say, okay, you cannot take part in other elections, maybe in the next 2 seconds of election or something like that? Maybe that will check.
Well, it's not in our law. You are talking for an amendment. But what I'm saying is, see, the judicial process, incidentally, is in stages. If you lose for pre-election matters, you can get as much as to the Supreme Court, I think. So if you lose in the lower court, you go to appeal. If you are not satisfied with what the Court of Appeal has done, you go to the judiciary. But all of these remedies, these remedial actions that these courts are supposed to take, is still bent on the integrity of the judiciary itself. Because if at the end of the day, we have seen Supreme Court judgments that even those of us who are called laymen will shudder that the highest court of our land will give that kind of judgment. The Imo one is everywhere, where people are still not come to terms with the fact that somebody who came fourth in an election is now governor of that state. That is notorious, okay? But what can you do? Because that is what the process has put in place. Any other thing you try to do is extrajudicial. And that is why I pin it on advocacy, which is the one that does not cost us anything. All that we will get is to get an invitation to come to Trust TV and talk about that and expect that the pressure that we bring to bear, you understand, will have some impact around, little changes. And then we can also name and shame people. You understand? We can name and shame and say, look, the political parties, the particular political parties that are very, very notorious for not obeying their own rules, we can call them out.
I would like you to speak more to the issue of the call for setting up of a pre-election tribunal, pre-election matters tribunal. Perhaps maybe that will deal with some of these issues.
Well, it will only accelerate. That's what it will do. Is you are calling for acceleration, so that. But with the reforms that we have now, most of these cases can no longer just go on terminally in the court. There now has to be a stop. Yeah, I think we have 160 days to sort out some of these issues. 180 days to sort out some of these issues. And so we need to also test our processes, because many times we're also in a hurry. We are fire brigade people in the country. We are in a hurry to make changes, but sometimes we need to also be patient with these processes, strengthen them, see their weaknesses, and see how we can, we can, because most of the time we put in something in place and without even running it through, we move to another thing, and then in moving to that other thing, we now prefer to go back to it's like people telling you now that the parliamentary system is the best, as if we have never practiced parliamentary system. And it was in practicing it that we decided that was not good enough. We now get to presidential. So the nature of people is that we are in a hurry. There's also a sense in which democracy is about patience, about perseverance, about getting to that point where we know that these things are not microwave, that you don't just put them in and get that. You have to test these processes and also work them out.
All right, you have been talking a lot about advocacy. To what extent is YAGA, for instance, going in changing the orientation of politicians? Because most of this problems stems from the do-or-die attitude, do-or-die belief that, you must win. So the spirit of sportsmanship is not there. People don't want to lose. So what can be done to change the orientation of politicians towards that?
First is that for us, there's a limit, because you must always know where your limit. As a civil society organization or the media, your work stops at calling attention. When you call attention to an issue, you put the pressure on the duty bearers to make the changes. Okay? So what have we done? We tried to observe the party primaries. For the first time, civil society was beginning interested in observing those party primaries. But you know what happens? These folks are impossible. Oftentimes, you have to claim what you are not to be able to. Once you say you are this organization, they refuse you accreditation. So you have to either now become media or something to be able to get there. And when you get that, you do a report. You even want to engage them. The dominant political parties are so arrogant to the point that they don't even attend trainings. You put trainings together for them. They send middle level staff if they even will come at all. Okay? So the pressure has to come from the top. There has to be that point in which we say enough. This is now enough. Because if you say, look, for instance, the constitution of the resident electoral commissioners. We identified folks who had tainted past. And we called attention. We petitioned the National Assembly, only for the National Assembly to say the reason we cleared them is that you people did not attach any affidavit. It not on the basis of the fact that the issue you raised is not fundamental. It is that when we saw your petition, you didn't attach any affidavit. But somebody who contested election as governor in a state recently will sit pretty as a resident electoral commissioner. Governors have hijacked the appointment of people into an institution as sacred as INEC. That we have called attention to that. We have put that on the public domain. We have gone to the duty bearers to make the change. That's why I told you about limitations. So we can't, okay, maybe you do a protest, which is the end point. But protest in itself is not an end, it's a means to drawing attention.
But isn't it worrisome that as our democracy grows, we have more of these problems?
Well, it's because we are not the people who are running, the people who took over from the military, rather than expand the democratic space, are constricting it.
So will you say our democracy is improving?
Well, there are pockets of efficiency. You can find some pockets of improvement. I told you one, that, you could just be going to vote and then suddenly they're announcing where you are voting and then you have left that. So that Egypt is in your past. You have come to a point where every change that you make brings its new challenges. And you don't outsource those challenges. The challenge with us is that we outsource those challenges when they come. Because there are people whose job is to see how to subvert the progress that you are making. Like you said, there are people who want dubious advantage. They don't want competition. The idea of competition annoys them. Today now, you have many more members of the National Assembly not returning. Not because they have not performed, but because their governors don't want them. So you have a set of people who have hijacked first the political party machinery and administration in their states. And it is inherited by somebody who has a command mentality, who became the president, the first president when we transited. A military man who was not ready to civilianize. He didn't have the idea that anybody could challenge him in any way. So he likes the word, I gave you the ticket. If you don't want, I remove you. So he went to remove somebody in Jos. He went to remove somebody.
He left power a long time ago. He cannot be held responsible for what parties are doing today.
What you inherit. You see, this is sweet now. Adisa Akinloye, MPN chairman, will have party meeting in the party secretariat. When these folks came, they took party meetings to Government House and the Villa. That's where party meetings now held. The president himself was a visitor to the party meeting because he's just a party member. This is not long ago. So when you say he can't be held, what you put in place, the people who took over from you did not continues to replicate that. Is that not what we did with the colonial masters? When the colonial masters left, the people who took over from the colonial masters did not delink from the colonial masters. They became the new colonial masters.
But it is the duty of those people to delink.
They didn't. And so they continued. So that's the pattern that we have in our country. We don't have people saying, look, this thing that this man did was bad.
So are these not things that legal reforms can take care of, can deal with? And how much of it do we need to checkmate this?
My brother, how does legal reform check when you want to have a party chairman? Okay, the governor says it's Eze that will be party chairman. And everybody says, Rankadede.
How did the governor get that such power? I mean,
I've just told you where it came from. When, let me call names, when President Obasanjo came in 1999, he appropriated the position of the leader of the party that is not in the constitution of their party.
But what is the duty of the people? The people, like he just asked.
The party itself.
Yes, the party, the people.
So the party, for instance, in the state, let's use the state for instance, the party has no members. That's why you can move in the morning and move in the evening. The governor funds the party. The only parties that are in existence are the ones that are in government, right? Remember that when Atahiru Bafara was in Sokoto, when he left the the AMPP, right? And joined the DPP. DPP was everywhere. Where is DPP now? Olusegun Mimiko left PDP and joined Labour Party. When he left Labour Party, what happened? When Orji Zukalu left PPA and went back to PDP, where is PPA today? What I'm telling you is that because the resources of the state is what is used to drive these structures, politicians have emasculated these structures in a way that when you are coming to a party meeting in Abuja, somebody pays your transport, feeds you, accommodates you, gives you money when you are going back home. You cannot, your stakeholdership in that party is already diminished.
So what can we do in such a way what can we do to move the party from an individual? Because all you're saying is like a party is an individual. Like one person is in charge and all of that.
Am I inventing this matter?
What can we do to move from that?
What we can do is to begin to reorganize the political parties in a way that people can pay membership dues. In a way that they can, when PDP started, it had a PDI, People's Democratic Institute, where it sent its cadres, you understand, to be schooled on whatever it is, the ideology of that party, just like the Action Congress, Action Group of old. Now, these things have died. We need to restore a situation in which we will cancel this waiver. So the basis of your being an APC member is because you subscribe to the ideology, whatever it is, of the APC or whatever, or the Action AAC, whatever political party you belong to. It has to be such that you belong, PRP, you belong to that organization and you are paying membership dues and you are making contributions to that party in a way that you can raise up your stakeholdership. Because it's about stakeholdership. I cannot be the one that will pay for your secretariat. And you come and tell me that that I can't tell you what to do.
As it stands now, for majority of Nigerians, political parties are merely platforms where they can get certain, favors or certain privileges, appointments, and the rest of them. That's all. But how do we get Nigerians to begin to see political party platforms as platforms that their lives and the lives of and the future of the country depends on it, really?
I think the reason you invited me is to do that, and that's what we've been doing since Monday, to alert Nigerians to the fact that if we continue to personalize political parties the way we are doing, the changes that we are looking forward to will not happen. Even just look at the most celebrated. Somebody joined a political party and became the presidential candidate. What happened to the folks who have been there before? What did he do to become the presidential candidate? Was it cheap? Nobody is interrogating that. And those are principled issues. Because if you don't raise those principled issues, then the outcome cannot be different. So what we have done is that every opportunity we have, like you've given me this opportunity now, we put that out very strongly, that our expectations are proportionate to the work that we do in the leadership recruitment process and platforms. If we don't do that work, we will not get the outcomes. So, for instance, you come to party primaries. Whether it is direct or indirect, you find out that people are selling their properties to become member of House of Assembly. Somebody has to, in some states, you have to sell your house. You have to give people cars. You have to give people motorbikes. You have to give people sewing machines. When you win that election, I don't know how those people who collected those bikes will come back to you to talk about good governance.
They've collected their good governance in the form of those machines, right?
So there is a thinking. Nobody talks about that. But that's how that man became that thing that you are talking about. That was it. I was on television. I finished. A friend of mine in the National Assembly said, when you say these things, you are calling me thief. I'm your friend. I saw you virtually. We are virtually saying I'm a thief. But Come to think of it, I sold 2 of my houses. I now asked him, I said, must you sell 2 of your houses? Must you go to House of Assembly? If the condition to go to the place. So there are issues, big issues that we are not putting
So
on
it
the
appears the issue of the having a smooth process, electoral process, is merely not just the function of the judiciary, as we are saying. The judiciary's role is limited, or I would say the judiciary will have less business to deal with if we have, you know, a better party structure.
If we run our political primaries well, if we run our elections according to the laws, because all these are law-guided issues. A political party cannot exist without a constitution, Abby. It cannot exist without regulations. Our elections are conducted under acts, electoral acts. If it is the violation of it that brings in the judiciary, and that's what I'm talking about. The judiciary, really, if you don't invite them, if you win your election fair and square and nobody approaches the court will, the tribunal will just sit there and do nothing. In many cases, the judiciary, in many cases, we've seen good episodic judgments that come from the judiciary that actually restores confidence and hope in the electoral process. We have seen the bad ones as well. But what I always ask is, if we don't go to court, what is the alternative? Because when we say don't go to court, we are saying people should do some other thing. So the court itself is an integral part of the electoral process. All of these needs is strengthening. Strengthen your electoral process, strengthen the political party structures and administration in a way that it can birth, a child that is not disabled, that has no disabilities. If you do that, then that's the end of the matter. So every day, as far as we talk about electoral reforms, let us have a 3-pronged or 4-pronged engagement with it. The first is that it is not just INEC that determines whether we have a good election. To consolidate this democracy, we must pay attention to the political parties. Another set of people that you cannot play with is the security agencies. They can play good role, they can also be a disaster. Then INEC itself, we must not let them off, because there are still elements within INEC who want people to win elections inside INEC rather than at the polling unit. Okay, so if you let them off, you also embody them, and they're at work right now. Those people are still at work. They are not happy that you can now sit in your house and see the results through the results, INEC results viewing portal. There are people who that angers, because that is democracy. The fact that in the US, somebody can sit down and observe and monitor these processes is a lot of gain. And we must ensure that there are no reversals.
All right. All right, thank you so much. It's a good place to end the discussion. We appreciate you coming on Daybreak and sharing your insight with us. Thank you. Our guest is the chairman of Partners for Electoral Reform and board member of YAGA Africa. He is Nwagu Ezenwa. We were unable to get other guests who could join us virtually, talking about Ibrahim Zikrullah, who is the Executive Director, Resource Center for Human Rights and Civic Education. That's our show for today. In case you have missed, you can always catch up across all our social media platforms and also on our YouTube channel, where we stream live 24/7. My name is Ayuba Ilya.
Thank you once again for joining us this morning. Do well to join us same time, same station tomorrow. My name is Stella Yajan. Do have a very pleasant day.